just in terms of the subtleties of a scene like that, right? There's much higher action scenes in the film, but here you have a digital character looking directly at Will Smith, and it has to work. And guess what? That scene is beautiful, and it does work. I always, by the way, felt that the design of him, which I think was led by Patrick Tatopoulos, threaded that needle really well of not going into the uncanny valley of giving a robot a human-looking face, right?
Well, also, by the way, the robot looks really cool. I love the transparency thing, and I'm sure that must have been one of the inspirations for Ex Machina, because it kind of goes back to that as well.
The cabling
Ex Machina
as well.
All the cabling. And welcome to the Visual Effects Notes Podcast. Today's episode is sponsored by Action VFX and their brand new Introduction to Comfy UI for VFX course.
Become the compositor studios can't afford to replace. Easily harness the full power of Comfy UI using Action VFX's Introduction to Comfy UI for VFX course. Taught by Doug Hogan, a VFX artist with 18 years of VFX experience and countless credits within the VFX industry. Within this course, you'll learn how to install Comfy UI, quickly generate clean plates, create utility passes, speed up set extensions, create 3D models from images, and so much more. You'll also get free EXR footage, workflows, and cheat sheets. So visit actionvfx.com to sign up today and become the compositor studios want to hire.
And we have a special treat for the Visual Effects Notes podcast listeners. Use the code COMFY10VFX to get an exclusive 10% discount for this course. And now on to the show.
Hi everyone, welcome to the VFX Notes Podcast. I'm Ian Fales from Befores and Afters, and as always, I'm joined by Hugo Guerra from Hugo's Desk. Hi Hugo, how are you?
Hi Ian, how are you doing? All good.
Great. Here we are again for our Rise of the AI Robots season, and we're talking about iRobot, very apt film, one of my faves. I think it sounds like one of Hugo's faves too. Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. I just love these seasons, Hugo. Really enjoying doing the podcast like this.
I do as well. It's great. It's great. And also, it seems like it's really nice and focused because you get to focus on the themes. We pick some nice films. Hopefully people like the selection. I hope so. And and if you don't like the selection, please let us know what else we should have done, so we can try to make like a part 2 or something like that. It's been fantastic. I really like this idea. This is really great.
Yes, well, thanks everyone for supporting us by watching this on YouTube and just being part of the VFX Notes podcast. We really couldn't do it without you. And please send us a suggestion to any of our emails or directly from YouTube for future seasons. We always like your ideas. And we've got some fun ones coming. I won't reveal them now, but we've got some really cool ideas for visual effects seasons at the VFX Notes podcast. It's been cool, right, Hugo? I really love it.
It's been great. And goes without saying that, thank you so much for all the support we get all the time with comments and with suggestions and emails and messages and always remember, you can always also support us. We have our own Patreons, and we have Ian has the magazine as well. We have a lot of ways that you can support the show, and you can support and spread the love with us as well. So thank you so much for that.
Yes. Okay. Let's dive into probably the film that I say the quote from the most with my friends, and it's not because of what you think, but okay, how do I explain this little silly anecdote? There is an amazing quote from Sonny in the film where he says, "I did not murder him," and he slams the door, he slams the table, and we'll talk about that scene. It's actually a really incredible visual effects scene. But the intonation in that sequence and in that delivery amongst my little group of friends here in Australia, when we say, "I did not do this," or "I did not," I'll say something like that, and a friend will pipe in with, "I did not murder him." I feel like an idiot sharing that, but I wonder if there's other people out there that sort of do that with movies, where they don't actually the quote doesn't just come up. It's because the intonation or the delivery sounds like the quote. Does that make sense? Oh,
It makes Ian, it makes perfect sense. I do that all the time with Anna. I do that all the time. We have all sorts of little things and little anecdotes and message and sentences from films. So I completely get what you mean. Completely understand. That
I do that
has
all the
to
time
mean
with
then,
iRobot.
that has to mean then that I guess that, you know, if you have a group of friends that like the movie and know the quote and everything, I'm assuming it was a big film then in Australia, I guess, wasn't it?
Yes, this film did really well, and partly it's because the director Alex Proyas is Australian, right? And
Yeah, that's right. Is it
people
really?
loved-
I never noticed. I'm joking. He has such a thick accent on the Blu-ray, on the DVD extras. Will Smith is constantly joking with him about his accent. He's always imitating him, just pulling his leg all the time, and just responding to him in a really terrible Australian accent.
That's funny. I mean, certainly Alex Proyas being Australian was part of the film's success, but this film is also tapping into the height of Will Smithness, right?
Oh,
He,
Will Smithness.
I mean, since Men in Black, and then since Independence Day, frankly, and then Men in Black, and then those sequels, and then a bunch of other films, he was just the bankable star.
Oh, yeah.
Aside from Tom Cruise around this era, wasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. And which is, I think he was one of the last movie stars, really. We only have like 2 or 3 now, like, really, to be honest. And he's really not that person anymore. Since
the slap.
But he was, I guess, until the slap, he was definitely that.
Yeah.
And but this is by far the most Will Smith movie ever made. I think just the way he moves, the way he talks, the jokes that he puts in. I mean, there's no other way this movie would have been done by anyone else but Will Smith doing this main character. The whole thing makes perfect sense. You know, the disdain by the robots, and the way he has retro stuff, and he has like the old school shoes and sneakers, and it's just perfect to this kind of old school Prince of Bel-Air kind of sequel, almost, the guy that is like a cool cop detective story, you know. So it's great. I love it, and I think the it's funny that you talked about Alex Proyas. I feel like at the time when this film came out, I loved this work so much. He kind of vanished a bit from the radar, really, to be honest. And he has done a few films that I'm not that much of a fan anymore, but I think he had a huge run there, you know, like with The Crow and Dark City, especially Dark City, and then iRobot, and then Knowing as well. I really like Knowing as well.
Knowing is great. I reckon that's become a real cult hit, actually, Knowing.
Yeah. So he has a huge run there, but then, you know, Gods of Egypt, and it's like a bit...
that didn't work.
That good.
No.
That didn't work.
No. As I understand it, in Sydney, Alex has been jumping a lot more into virtual production and doing lots of tests. I actually saw him the other day at a mall in Sydney. I've interviewed Alex a couple times, and I ran into him at this mall in Sydney, which was like, oh, hi, Alex Proyas. So that was pretty amazing. But yes, it was so cool that he got to direct this film, and actually, I'm going to say he nailed it. Because this film is it's just this perfect mix of action, right? There are really, really cool sequences in the film. Yeah. It's a detective story, right? Working out what went on with this robot and the murder. And then intrigue as well. A bit of a love story, sort of, but not really, but sort of, you know. And then just using the latest...
it's enough. It's enough, and it's a nice touch, and the sexual tension is in the air, and it's really not a nice way that they didn't exploit it either. So I thought that was
no,
cool
they didn't go over the top with that, which I liked.
Yeah, exactly.
But the other thing, of course, and that's what we'll be talking about mostly today, is it utilized all the things that were going on in visual effects at that time, which is creature work, motion capture, digital environments, amazing rendering. You know, things were really starting to look photoreal just from the renders alone.
Yeah.
And then compositing. Compositing was just really, really, really coming into its stride, I think. And you're going to talk a lot more about that, Hugo.
Yeah,
in terms
we'll
of
get into
Nuke.
that, yeah.
And, we still were in the shaky era as well.
Yeah.
But I feel like the compositing on this show was expertly done too. It was also a huge visual effects show for the time, something like 1,000 shots and a bunch of vendors working together. But we'll get into that a bit more. But as a film, Hugo, I just dug it. I just thought it had that perfect mix of action scenes, bringing you back to, let you breathe. They didn't really give away too much until the ending. I'm not sure I loved the AI Vicky side of things, because it just, what it feels like today? It feels a bit like that big third act Marvel thing that doesn't always kind of work. And sometimes it does work in a Marvel film, of course, and it doesn't quite work so well in iRobot. But as a film as a whole, it really had a bit of heart, especially with Sonny, as a computer generated character, and that's also very hard to do. But what did you think? What's your memories of watching the film?
This film, and since we're having a season about AI and about robots, because I think the film, when came out the first time, is not like something that we used to think a lot. Like this is so much more present now on our minds, this kind of film. So I think the film, when it came out in 2004, I mean, we knew about robots and AI and all of this, but it wasn't even, it was a distant future. We weren't worried about it. It wasn't, and especially the books, the original books and the short stories from Isaac Asimov. I mean, they're from the 60s. I mean, they're even older. And so this is even more of a stretch that he kind of fought this through at the time. But the movie was exceptional. I really loved the way that they've made a really smart movie, an intelligent movie with a lot of action scenes, which is very rare. Usually either they are a really dumb movie with really stupid scenes and has no intelligence whatsoever, but this is the time where we still kind of had this kind of really high-end blockbuster movie that had a lot of history, a lot of story, a lot of really interesting intrigues. I thought the whole backstory of Will Smith with the girl on the car and the robot saving him instead of the girl, it's an awesome backstory, and the 3 laws, of course. All these things were so amazing at the time. I thought it really gave a lot of character to the movie and really made you think a lot about what makes us humans and how we're going to be replaced. And not to mention also, it showed you this other side, which we now have a lot with the tech bros, where we have a lot of people on this movie completely 100% accept these robots and don't even think about them. And like they just 100% are there and don't even question anything. And Will Smith is the person that still questions them and still sees a robot on the street with a bag and thinks the robot is like robbing someone. So it's a really cool retro detective story with this kind of backstory of the AI development in robots, and the whole thing is just really exceptional. I thought at the time, I don't know if you went to the cinema to see this. I went to the cinema to see it at the time.
Oh, absolutely.
You did, right?
Yeah.
So it really blown me away at the time. I went to the cinema. I think I went alone. I don't believe I went with Anna, but I think I went alone to see this movie. I think I saw it a few times. And I was a huge fan of Alex's work, especially because of Dark City. I thought Dark City was like a mind-blowing movie, especially the first 45 minutes are just like absolutely impeccable. But yeah, and so I think, especially for the season we're making, this is most likely, from all the movies we've done so far on this season, most likely the one that has the biggest questions regarding. It also shows you maybe the most realistic future that we're kind of going to, because these robots are nothing more than the same exact robots that we see with Boston Dynamics right now. and the AI type, this cube lady, the Vicky that was on the building, it's kind of like similar to the kind of AIs that we now have controlling certain parts in ChatGPT. And so it's a bit, I think from all of the movies, this is the one I could watch and I'm like, yeah, this is happening. Yeah, this is going to happen for sure. I'm just like looking at it and not just because it's set in 2045, which is only 10 years from now, but it's really believable the way that they've merged old with new and how they've showed the cities with only some things that are modern and others that are not. I thought that was brilliant,
Yeah. It occurs to me now that one of the reasons that people really also enjoyed the film at the time, I just enjoyed it as a film-going experience, as I often talk about here on the podcast. But in some of the behind the scenes on the DVD for the film, they really had a few featurettes about how are robotics part of our everyday lives.
Yeah.
And I suppose at the time that was in the news quite a lot, and in the news even more now, as you say, with Boston Dynamics.
Yeah.
But, people might have maybe even had robotic vacuum cleaners then. Maybe not. I don't quite remember. Yeah. And, there's also been this film AI from Steven Spielberg, which is part of our series, that talked about robots coming into the home. And there were a few other movies like that. In some ways, they were suburban type films. This is a much more futuristic one and an action one. And I think still very realistic. It's like, oh, we might have robots that we buy as helpers. People were thinking about that. It hasn't really happened to that degree, and maybe it'll never happen. But it was on the minds of consumers, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, absolutely.
The only thing I'm going to say is that when it did get to Vicky, and as we're talking about a review of the film, I remember at the time, or maybe it was when I started watching, the home entertainment release of this film, there were a couple of films with the premise being that the AI or computer had intervened in humanity because it had calculated that humanity was going to destroy itself unless they intervened. So maybe that's an Asimov thing. I'm not really sure. I haven't read his works. Yeah. But I just remember thinking, wow, we're really it's probably true. Humanity is going to destroy itself. But I felt like movies were really leaning into that. I'm going to make it better before you guys destroy yourselves. And after a while, it just didn't start feeling as original as it had been. But that's a particular memory I had of the mid-2000s, where a lot of film ideas and even novels were playing with that, partly because it's true, we are in some kind of strange decline. But anyway, that was just a memory I have of Vicky.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I know what you mean. In that sense, the film, I can completely get that. It's funny that what you were saying about that it didn't really ended up happening with the helpers, and I do think that there will be a moment in the very near future, maybe even before the time that this film is set in 45, which is 10 years. I think there will be a moment where either the robots from Tesla or the robots from Boston Dynamics make some kind of partnership with something similar to OpenAI with ChatGPT. And I think that will be the breakthrough where they merge both of them and kind of something.
Just the way you said that, Hugo, sounded like the robots themselves would make the partnership without any human intervention, which of course is probably what will happen.
Oh they will just. That's horrible, isn't it? Remember you saw this video about two chats. It was two types of ChatGPTs talking to each other on the phone, and they started having their own language, and no one knew what they were talking about. Oh, we're so screwed.
We're dead. We're dead. Yeah.
Come on. No, but I cannot. This is an awesome movie now. I can see that happening. ChatGPT becomes self-aware, and then it calls up, connects with Boston Dynamics, and then the Terminator happens. That's the Terminator. That's it.
Oh, it is. It is.
Yeah. So and this movie, Yes, on the cinema, it was amazing. I loved it watching it there. But this movie had a huge impact, I think, on the home release as well. And I feel like I really, really would like to talk that in a short amount of time. I just wanted to mention that. I just wanted to as people probably will notice, I'm a big fan of the movie. As you can see, I have all the editions that exist. I have this one here, which is, I haven't even opened it. I need to do a video of this. Has all sorts of 45 millimeter things, and it has all sorts of special things. And then I have the Blu-ray, which came out a couple of years ago, which is in 3D. I watched the movie in 3D just the other day. So the 3D version. And then, of course, the original DVD, which is in Portuguese, the cover, because this is my original that I bought in Portugal. Now, I just wanted to mention this real quick for people that are interested in watching this movie. Be very careful, because the Blu-ray is great, of course, because it's HD and all of that. But it only has the commentaries. There are 3 audio commentaries. One, which is not that good, which is the director and the writer. They don't really go into a lot of deepness into it. I don't think it's a very good commentary. The one that is really good is the second commentary, which is it's a collection of interviews with the editor, the production designer, the VFX supervisor, the VFX producer, a bunch of craft people on that commentary, and artist people on the commentary. It's a really good commentary. They really go deep into a lot of things that they've done on the film and how they did the film, and it's really good. And then the third commentary is the composer of the movie, which is a really, really cool thing that I've never really seen, which is they've made an audio version of the movie with no sounds, and it's only the music playing. Yeah. And then the composer is talking about that, just the music. It's really nice. It's not really something we discuss here on the show, but it's a really nice touch to have that. So the Blu-ray has those 3 commentaries. Unfortunately, has no extras. There's not a single behind the scene piece of footage, nothing. What it does have, which is really annoying, it has previews of other films. It's really annoying that they've done that. Now, if you guys really want to know, this DVD, the original DVD that came out at the time in 2005, has 5 hours of extras. It's insane. And this you can buy for £2 on eBay. I kid you not. I checked yesterday. £2 and you get 2 discs, and one of them has 5 hours of stuff. And on this DVD, and I'll put it on the screen because you guys are going to be blown away by this. On this DVD, not only you have a huge documentary about the visual effect, which is half an hour long, where it goes into the Mocap, it goes into how they did the animation, and even explains what Mocap is, because it was a new thing at the time they were talking. It explains how the HDRs work. You even saw the softwares. You see the screen grabs of the computer. You see composite. You see all sorts of things. And then on the middle of all of that, you have, of course, the deleted scenes, and you have also these hours of footage of on-set footage of them filming this thing. And this is so detailed that you even see them stopping for lunch. It's really detailed to show you the makeup artists and to show you the lunch and to show you the production design. It's like a workshop of what happens on set. It's hours and hours of footage. And then the cherry on the top is that they not only done that, but they actually went over and made all the breakdowns, the VFX breakdowns, or in the disc. This is from Rainmaker, from DD, from Digital Domain, and from Wētā. The actual breakdowns are on the disc. I don't think that's very common. And all of them. There's 40-something breakdowns on the disc. And this is when I first got this DVD, when I was a young lad, this was a mind-blowing experience when I watched it at the time. I was still in Portugal, because it was like film school. I mean, this is the DVD, This is the DVD to have. And I think if people are fans of this movie, forget about the Disney Plus thing, only has the film, doesn't even have the 3D version. Forget about the Blu-ray. It's really pointless unless you want the HD version like I did. The DVD is what you want to get. And all that footage, all that behind the scenes, all those breakdowns, well, the breakdowns are available, but the behind the scenes and all that stuff, it's all gone. It's not even anywhere for you to watch. It's really shocking. I feel like it's a shame that these studios don't take the advantage and the opportunity to put that stuff online for people to watch, people would love it, you know.
I mean, it did. I love it too, Hugo, and I remember it being my little film school as well. As
I know.
This was prior to me being a visual effects journalist, actually. Yeah. So it was incredible. We had just come out of an amazing time with DVD releases, and part of that was driven by the Lord of the Rings films.
Yeah.
But there were also the prequels,
Absolutely.
Star Wars prequels, and a bunch of other releases. So Hollywood and the home entertainment discs were the big money spinners.
It was a selling point, It was a selling point to have that.
And, you know, they just thought audiences were lapping it up, which they were. I mean, we were. And things changed, as we know, over time. But it was incredible, too, because there wasn't as much online. You know, YouTube wasn't really hitting its heights that it is now. Yeah. So online video was not really as big a thing. So it was the only place to watch stuff. And also they were very professionally made.
Oh, yeah.
These making ofs, you know.
And they were super honest as well, by the way. Like, you would see so much honesty on these Blu-rays. They were discussing how hard it was that suddenly we only had 600 shots and then they changed it to 1,200. And they talk about, you even see Alex Proyas bitching about the council not helping them with permits. And you hear them, he's bitching about like the financial side of the movie and the studio not supporting this film. It's like so raw. It is so raw, and it's unbelievable how the studio even let that be published. Maybe they didn't even watch it. I don't know. Kind of seems like that, but it is a real shame. I feel really sad about this because I feel like this is content that really teaches you a lot. And without a doubt, this Blu-ray, this DVD, Twister and The Matrix and Lord of the Rings, like you said, and also pretty much every DVD from David Fincher, those were my film school. You know, I've learned so much just by watching those documentaries and those very, very heavy featurettes, which are gone. We don't even... I know people will tell me, oh, but there's featurettes on YouTube, but they're not the same. They're not... First of all, they're very marketing driven. They don't really have enough footage or even go very deep into things, and they're not honest at all. Like, they just don't seem like they actually are showing you. I think the only company in the world that still does something about this is Criterion. They are still the only ones that actively interview people and actively make documentaries and actively invite people over to do commentaries, you know. Even VFX, you know, we had Craig Barron, which was on the show. He has a few features on some special editions on Criterion. So I think Criterion is the only left of that. You know, and they don't do a lot of VFX movies, of course. They're more classics. They will one day, of course, if Criterion sticks around. In 20 years from now, they're going to be doing these movies because these would be the classics. And so I can't wait for that. I can't wait to see like an iRobot Criterion edition that has a bunch of stuff, you know.
Yeah. I'm sad about it too. However, I'm aware of a younger filmmaker movement, and we've talked about this a lot already. Wes Ball is an example of this with Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. And the featurettes on those discs, although there's many and varied releases of Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes on Blu-ray and DVD, they single-handedly have the most incredible featurette, and that is that raw cut with Eric Winquist, who happened to work on iRobot, by the way, from Wētā, cool. Along with Wes and the editor.
That's cool.
And the two, you know, raw footage and then final shot. That is an incredible featurette on that.
It is.
That film.
No, I agree with you.
And if we go back to having those things...
Yeah, it's only launched on the US, though. It's a shame that it's not out on any other country. But don't know what's happening there, why. But at least it's on Disney Plus. At least you can watch it there.
Yeah.
But I know that's a great example, but that's one out of 1,000 or whatever. Like, I just feel like I also feel like they're leaving money on the table. Come on. Like, I do think, don't they want content for their platforms? That's a lot of all this stuff is content. People watch anything. Like, if YouTube is approved, people watch anything. So
I don't know. We must have talked about this before, Hugo, but I reckon at some point they have done the studies into how many people watch them. And
Yeah.
and look, visual effects is a niche thing. We love it.
No,
it's
I know.
a big
I know.
industry.
I know.
And I think the other thing to think about is they cost money to make. And there's just less money because there's less DVD sales, and streaming is a different kind of thing. I mean, I'm not here to give a business analysis of Hollywood, but and I wouldn't be able to, but I think that's the reason, right?
Yeah, no, I know,
plain
I
and
know.
simple.
But then again, like I look back at, for example, Top Gun Maverick from 2 years ago, which made $1.5 billion. And their DVD and Blu-ray is crap, has almost nothing. And I don't even know why that is. Like, I feel they had enough money to do it, but they just chose not to. Like it's, I know I'm an old man and I know I'm ranting about this, but hey, the thing with this is anyone listening to this podcast can solve this problem very easily. If you want to know about iRobot, go to eBay, go to World of Books, £2.50. That's the cost of the DVD, with shipment included. It's like ridiculously cheap.
Yeah.
And you
amazing.
get like 6 hours of documentaries and shit to watch. It's any young person here watching this show, if they want to know about how films are done and how VFX is done, this is the way. It's like the only way, really. And I know you might think, oh, the film is 20 years old, but it doesn't really matter. It's kind of how we still do movies. It's really, nothing has changed that dramatically for what they used to do. Is kind of, in fact, I would say, even as a good caveat, I guess, like as a good way of segueing, it's probably one of the first movies that kind of started what we do now, which is really interesting in that sense, in terms of compositing and in terms of how to approach lighting and texturing and subsurface scattering and mocap, and it's just like a cementing of all those techniques that have been brewing through the years, in that decade,
Yeah, but that's an interesting point to make, which is if we wanted to make iRobot now, it's almost like a simple premise, which is we've got a CG character and similar looking CG characters throughout the whole film. How are we going to do it? Well, we're going to have the actor on set and we're going to do it motion capture. In this film, of course, they had Sonny's actor, Alan Tudyk, who is now well known for doing other motion capture work for
he does robot as well, which is funny
Rogue
that he
One
doesn't. I know.
Yeah, Andor.
It's so funny that he actually ends up doing Andor in Rogue One, which is kind of also a snarky robot, but it's kind of funny that he's become the specialist of doing robots, I guess.
but of course he wasn't really captured on set. He was just performing either in a grey suit or a green screen suit, with some markers. But then, just like they had to do Gollum this way as well in Lord of the Rings, he was motion captured later on a stage, on a volume, right?
Yeah.
And so that was how we used to do things, very separately. And now we're much more about, let's have the actor there and capture what we can there. They might do facial capture separately or some sort of facial separately. I mean, of course, they do it at the same time as well sometimes with a HMC. But it's really interesting thinking about what we might do now compared to what they did on iRobot.
Yeah.
And that's just the motion capture and performance. As you were mentioning, we were getting good in the VFX industry. We were getting good at integrating CG characters into plates, I think. And we were getting good at compositing at the time too. So we'll definitely talk about that in a little bit, Hugo. But we just want to remind the audience that it is 21 years ago. Yeah. And, it doesn't sound like it was early days of visual effects or CG at all. But
no.
It was in terms of the modern techniques we were using to integrate CG characters so well
which are, as you were saying, like it's kind of the way we do things now, but it would have been a lot more simpler really now because, like you said, we have so much more advanced cleanup tools and we have so much more advanced rotoscoping and so much more advanced tracking that it would have been so much easier to have the person walking around on the set, and they probably wouldn't have done so many clean plates, and they wouldn't have wasted so much time trying to do a lot of plates that didn't really work out with the proxy people, with the green screen suits, and the mocap, like you said, would have been captured on set right away. Or with the suit, they could have also used the Sense suit as well. That could have worked probably. A lot of the environments on the background could have probably done on Unreal in real time on the set, so they could have checked things on Unreal. The same way the CEO building and the office would have been done most likely in LED wall instead of the light of the painting that they had there that didn't really work. They were really upset about that. So I think all these things that they did on this movie in 2004, all of them would have kind of been done the same way, but on much more improved pipelines.
Yeah, I mean,
that's the cool thing about it.
Screams of virtual production, right?
Absolutely.
And not just mean LED walls, but I mean the motion capture. I mean virtual camera tools. And just shooting. And look, can I just say that is also essentially what was happening. Was moving towards a virtual production approach.
Well, wasn't they used this the Inco? It was called Inco the Cam, right? Wasn't that the name? I think it was a system that they could have real time preview on set. So it was kind of already there.
Oh yeah,
but it was a very But it was a rudimentary version of what we have today, of course. More advanced than the one from AI, which Spielberg didn't even really use on the film. But it's a few years later, so it's kind of, I guess, getting improved, more and more improved, So, probably.
Yeah. I would say the big lineage through line thing with this film was where motion capture was at. Now, I 100% think that the DD and Wētā animators did an incredible job on keyframing and motion editing and all the things they had to do. But at this time, 2004, we'd done a few mocap films, right? As in, there'd been some great work done by ILM on The Mummy and Phantom Menace with Jar Jar. And then, of course, we had Gollum, right?
Yeah.
We just did. In the meantime, we had Final Fantasy, which was done by Square. And, just many of the people that were involved in that were actually involved in this film as well, including Andy Jones, the animation supervisor. Now, Andy has just gone on to do incredible things on Lion King, and he sort of pops up as this visual effects consultant, as an anim director supervisor. But having Andy Jones on this film in that role kind of made me realize, they needed to, get the people who understood performance and motion capture at the time, and that's why he was there. And DD was kind of becoming this house that also leaned heavily on motion capture and understood volumes. And of course, Wētā Digital, now Wētā FX, was one of those as well. So again, it's sort of just to remind listeners, viewers, that we're in a bit of a transition phase from, great visual effects in the 90s, digital visual effects in the 90s, and just really, really, really powering through in the mid-2000s with like blockbuster looking stuff. And motion capture was kind of like this thing, how do we get this performance on screen? Well, we're mocap. And this is one of those films.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see that a lot on the behind the scenes, on the documentaries, which are really detailed and they really show a lot of it. It's really rudimentary. They have very few cameras on the mocap stage. The animation captured is a bit like loose and not really completely well captured, but it's really the starting point of a lot of it. And I feel like, and also it's like not only that, but also like a lot of technical hurdles that they were kind of going through about how to actually transition and introducing a lot of hand animation as well, especially the face stuff. Like I think most of Alan's performance was really hand animated, really, because they didn't have any trackers on his face at all. But I saw some really nice side by side pieces of footage, and they did a really brilliant job on animating and kind of keeping the essence of him on Sonny. I feel that was really cool. But I think for me, at the time in 2004, this was the movie that for me put Digital Domain on the map, in my view, like, because it was probably, I don't know if it's correct, but I think it was one of the first biggest shows that they've done, wasn't it? Like, it was massive creature. No, but they haven't really done, like, as they say on Cinefx, at least. I'm not sure if it's completely, maybe they're just like downgrading themselves, but they say that this was the biggest first time that they've made the main character walking around in CG.
Sorry.
That's what I meant. Yeah.
I mean, clearly DD had done Titanic in 97 and a bunch of other great things. Yeah. But yes, that's right. Leading
as
the
a character,
exactly.
As a CG character, which they shared with Wētā, of course, but it was, I think at the time, really put them on the map, and not just because of the incredible work that they've done with Sonny, but also, I think it really brought up like this, like a lot of people didn't know about this secret weapon that they had on their company, which was called Nuke, which now everyone knows, but at the time it was a quite obscure software that no one really knew, and kind of started appearing everywhere because it was advertised on the pages of Cinefx, and it was kind of in 2004, 2005 that really started having a version that you could buy on D2 software. This is before Foundry. And I know you know all about that. You just did an amazing FMX presentation about the history of Nuke with Jonathan, which was also involved on this project as well, wasn't he? Like, he was also part of it as well. So... Yeah. I
mean, that's right. For a few years there, I mean, literally from the inception of Digital Domain, they basically developed their own proprietary compositing tool, which is Nuke. And yes, we all know what Nuke is now. But
exactly.
They had this at their own disposal. Yeah. And so no one else was using it. They really ramped things up after Titanic when they realized that it was great but had some memory issues, and Jonathan Eggstad, who I did talk to at FMX, helped basically invent Nuke's 3D system, which was first used on Time Machine, I think it was, from 2001, around that time anyway. And then, eventually Nuke was commercialized and became a Foundry product. But that wasn't until, I think it's 7.
It's only on 7. It was only 2007 that happened.
Yeah.
That's when they released 4.7 or 4.8, I believe, which was the first Foundry version.
Yeah, but they did try and sell Nuke as a standalone piece of software in 2002 under D2 software.
Yeah.
So... I'm not sure how well it went, but certainly people had access to it. But yes, DD, it was DD's secret weapon, wasn't it, Hugo?
Yeah.
So I'd love to talk about that, how you sort of came across it, either from iRobot or before.
Man, this movie is the turning point of my career. Tell you not, kid you not. I've been using, I only realized this the other day, I've been using Nuke for 20 years now. Since I started using Nuke in 2005. And so it's been 20 years. I feel like so old now when I talk with kids on my streams, and they are 20 years old. And they've been using Nuke for 2 years or 3 years or whatever. This was a mind blow. At the time, I was an After Effects artist, pretty proficient on After Effects, and I was dabbling on Fusion, seeing what that was and checking it out, and I was dabbling in Shake a little bit. This was before it was made by Apple. It was taken over by Apple, but it was I was in Portugal, man. It was incredibly expensive. I could never afford Shake or Fusion or Nuke, for that matter. It was incredibly expensive, so I only had After Effects, which was the cheapest one you could get. But I mean, it's 20 years, so I'm happy to say this, but at the time in Portugal, everyone just had torrent softwares. That was it. Like, everyone just had pirated softwares all over the place. And so that was the first contact I had with Nuke. I found a pirated version of Nuke 4, which was with the splash screen of D2. And I loaded it up, had no fucking idea what it was. Was lost in looking at it, and I was like, what is this? And at the time, when I watched iRobot and then I saw the CineFX magazine and all the ads, it was not just iRobot, it was also Stealth, this movie with airplanes, which was called Stealth, right? I think it was called Stealth.
Yeah, Stealth, and then Aeon Flux around this
Exactly.
time was another big Nuke breakthrough type thing. Yeah,
those movies, of course, iRobot was a better movie than all these three, but those movies really changed my life forever. I was obsessed with Nuke. I was obsessed with the projection system, with the tree. They had these flyers, Nuke, on the magazine where you could see them projecting the textures into the background of Sonny's interrogation scene. And you could see the 3D system with the entire wall being built inside of Nuke. And this just blown my mind. I was like, what the hell is this? And then also the EXR thing, with the EXRs with the multipass compositing layering system, and the gizmos as well. They were talking about all the gizmos that they create, the MakeBot gizmo, that all of this stuff is really normal now. We all know what it is in Nuke. But at the time, this was mind-blowing of someone coming from Photoshop and from After Effects. And so I really started learning Nuke, really advanced. At the time, no one was using Nuke in London. Everyone was using Shake. And really, really hammered Nuke in and really forced myself to learn Nuke in 2005. And then eventually Foundry bought Nuke. And I then was in a really luxurious situation. I was working in Sweden that year, and I was in a company that I convinced them to buy Nuke. And so we bought a license of Nuke from Foundry, 2007. And I just did not stop since. And I learned everything about it to a point that when I got to London, I was really proficient in Nuke. And no one was, and that's why the Mill hired me as the head of Nuke, because no one else knew Nuke and everyone just used Shake all the time. And that also led for me to then teach at Scape Studios, teaching Nuke as well, because no one knew how to teach Nuke. And so this film has a huge impact in my career. It completely sidetracked everything I was doing, because I was doing motion graphics and I was doing short films and music videos. And then suddenly I was there in London in 2008, like the only kind of person that knew Nuke really inside out. And I really owe this entire thing to iRobot, because I think that was the movie that I saw the projection system and the EXR systems and the way that you could recomp the entire shader of 3D using different passes from rendering. This was just a revolutionary methodology of working,
I think that can't be understated. This was also at a time when, look, many studios use something like RenderMan to render their CG characters, objects. And RenderMan is incredible. But at some point, it wasn't a ray tracer. It wasn't using path tracing to do that. And many VFX studios cheated, right? The photorealism by having ambient occlusion renders and doing lots of things in compositing. Yeah. What I remember from iRobot is that Nuke really allowed Digital Domain, in particular, to cheat the fantastic look of Sonny and the other robots by, as you've mentioned, breaking down the renders into these passes, the shaders into passes, and just they did have that gizmo called MakeBot or MakeBot or something that allowed that, but also because they had this stand-in actor Alan in the scene, they had to do a lot of reconstruction of all the scenes. I mean, you do that on all these films with big visual effects, and Nuke was just the pathway for them to do that in a very digestible way, at least from the outside. So even I, who wasn't writing about visual effects at the time, I could realize that DD had something special to be able to help do those things on iRobot. Now, someone is going to pipe up and say, you could do all those things in Shake, and ILM could do all those things in its Compa at the time, or whatever it was. And clearly Wētā did some stunning work on this film in Shake as well. But Nuke was certainly what it was it felt like Nuke was the high fidelity way of compositing.
Yeah.
That's
For
what
CG, yeah. Now it's
And-
known for everything, of course, but at the
Yeah.
time it was really, okay, you want to do CG compositing, you use Nuke, that's it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it mainly has to do with the fact, and also combined with, at the time when I was working in the beginning, I was using Nuke to composite V-Ray renders, and V-Ray
Right.
was probably at the time the best renderer that looked photoreal out of the box. Like we all knew in 2005, 2006, 2007, V-Ray in 3D Studio Max just had this the GI, the global illumination setup, which made everything real out of the box. And it was really a low effort thing to make it look with bounced light and with GI, and that together with the EXR compositing pipeline and building the shaders that way. And the flexibility with object IDs, and then also the flexibility with all those things, it just made a huge difference. And on the case of Sonny, and the case of this film, on iRobot, it really has to do the really incredible moment is when they realized that it was going to be so expensive to render this thing in subscription scattering. It would have going to be impossible. It would have taken so much effort, so much render time, to have this semi-transparent kind of iMac 90s look that Sonny has. He has this kind of look of the shell laptops from Mac, or even the iMac, like the colored Macs that we used to have at this time. And I'm sure that's what they inspired themselves to do the movie, because he does look like a Mac robot. If you think about it from the 2000s, like if Apple would have made a robot at that time, it would have looked like that. But the really secret weapon here was to have all the internal layers in rendering, which you don't have to do what we called semi-transparency and also refraction layers, because you could render the CG inside. And then they had these extra layers, which was subsurface scattering, kind of a little bit of a fake subsurface scattering. But then they used Nuke with the alphas of those passes to then blur the inside of the other interior of the robot. So they could kind of split out the render in a way that they could use a regular blur in compositing to just blur the entire internal organs of the robot, without having to actually render that blur, which, of course, I know today we just render it. That's it. We just render it because we have all these physically accurate renders. But this was impossible to render. We're talking about 2004. Man, at the time, a great computer was like a Pentium 3. Like, I mean, this was not the time you could render this kind of stuff.
But I think also DD had the confidence to do it. That's the difference here. Because they understood what Nuke was capable of, they'd invented it, and so those layers were like numbered in the 40s to 50s, right, Hugo?
I know.
I'm
Sorry,
not convinced.
I don't want anyone to be upset with what I said. I meant to say Pentium 4, not a Pentium 3. Would have been a Pentium 4 at that time, not a Pentium 3. Sorry, but I know that just the sheer amount of layers that we're talking about in AOVs and passes, which are the most common thing in the world. In fact, now we even don't do that. A lot of companies don't even do the AOVs anymore because the render engines are so powerful that they just put it on the farm and render it again. So there's even companies now that they don't even break up the layers. But at the time, this was kind of too many XRs, one for beauty passes and one for supporting passes, and then 17 layers per robot to do this gizmo. This is a very common practice of what we still do. Even today, I still comp this way. Like, that's the thing. We still composite this way, even today, with AOVs and with the methodology of doing gizmos. Even as it stands with Nuke 16, which is, if you watch this podcast, this is 2025. And so right now, we still kind of composite stuff like this. It's just that we comp it in 4K and 6K and those kind of things now, instead of doing it, I would assume, in HD, which what they were doing at the time.
Yeah. And I was going to say, Nuke was a huge part of DD's success on this film, but also it was the whole workflow. And by that time in visual effects production, we've mentioned this already a little bit before, we'd really understood, I think, about the idea of surveying what was shot on set
Yeah.
and bringing that into the process of look dev and compositing.
Absolutely.
I mean, for example, for an obvious example was I feel like they totally went and shot chrome balls and gray balls and HDRs. DD had a sort of mechanical, mechanized way of doing that, which we're very familiar with now. Of course, these cameras on tripods that do it. But by that time, DD had been doing that for a little while, especially starting with X-Men, I think in 2000.
Yeah.
And prior to that, someone like John Knoll had kind of really started implementing that on some of the films he'd worked on at ILM, including Phantom Menace. So the industry was kind of doing this. But I guess what I mean is there was a real workflow of like, let's make sure our CG looks like it's part of the scene, even though we've only had a stand-in Sonny there, or just Alan Tudyk, so let's acquire the data from the set in a very sophisticated way. And I think this film is an example of where that really occurred.
Yeah, it is.
In a big way. They were already doing it, but this film, I think, is the one where it was really successful.
And also, once again, it's a very similar procedure to what we do today. Like, this movie does not use motion control to do the passes, and which I believe, as I understood from Cinefx, it only has one shot, which is motion control. I don't know which one it is, but there's only one. And this means that they had to shoot clean plates, and they had to shoot the proxy plates, which is when you have the actors with green screen suits walking around, and then the empty plates without those green screen people, not talking about the clean plate, which is no people whatsoever, but especially these Chicago shots when they go down and you see a lot of robots walking around the middle of all the people. They had to shoot this 3 times. They had to do a clean plate, and then they had to do a plate with just the people, and then a plate just with the proxy green screen people. And then they had to kind of like somehow, without motion control, kind of combine all this crap all in one go, which is what we do these days. It's famous Spanish motion control by hand, which is kind of like we just align it by hand. And so, which is at the time, like it was a really scary thing, I'm sure. Like, it was a really like hard thing to commit, because we're talking about 1,000 like there's so many shots on this movie, so many shots, and it's a huge commitment, but it worked out really well. It didn't really work out. And of course, sorry, I forgot to mention, of course, like you said, the HDR passes as well, which the spheres and the fake robot as well. All of this, by the way, done with film, not with video. This is all filmed in film. So they had to shoot all this in proper 35 millimeter celluloid film, and then scan all this stuff as well, and then print it back to film again when they deliver it, because this was not a digital movie at all. So I think it's funny how you see how they also were working things out. Like, they really thought that by rehearsing with the green screen proxy actors, that people would know where they should be standing, and then they could take them out, and then people would stay where they were. They ended up finding out that they don't. People just walk around all the place. And so they ended up, instead of using the clean versions, which were supposed to be the easier ones, they ended up having to use the green screen people there and then paint them out using patches with the other shots. And so they learned the hard way, but I'm sure they've never done that thing again. so it is people, we were still working this out. I think that's also what you feel like when you're watching these behind the scenes and you're reading about the movie on Cinefx. A lot of things were still being worked out and kind of figured out. I think this entire phase, isn't it? Like we talked a lot about on this podcast, all the way from like maybe 99 with episode 1 in The Matrix, and then all the way to maybe 2006 or 7, a lot of things were being worked out. And now we have the result of that pipeline kind of now, like it took a while for it to get there.
Yes. We should give a shout out here to the main team. Yeah. John Nelson was the production visual effects supervisor. He'd basically come off an Oscar win for Gladiator. And, he was a real force behind the film. For DD, the visual effects supervisor was Eric Nash. For Wētā Digital at the time, the visual effects supervisor was Joe Letteri. And as I mentioned, Andy Jones was the animation soup, who really basically was the person making sure Sonny felt like Alan Tudyk, but also felt like a robot, and gave Sonny that personality that Alan also infused into the performance. So I really have a lot of praise for what Andy did on this film. But that was the main team. And of course, Hugo, this film was an Oscar nominated for visual effects in a year when they were still only had 3 films as the nominees. It was Spider-Man 2 and Prisoner of Azkaban. Spider-Man 2 won that and was incredible. I feel like maybe because it had some super great early digital human work. That was kind of neat.
Yeah, and I think the Spider-Man that year was a much bigger movie and much more blockbuster, and it made so much more money, and it was really in the mind of everyone. Spider-Man 2 is considered one of the best sequels ever made, and so I think it was going to be hard. It's a shame, but you know that iRobot didn't win, but it's a massive achievement to be nominated on the time we only had 3. So that's a massive achievement because that is a huge bake-off. Jesus, like to just get to 3, that's tough. That's really tough. You know?
Yeah, it would have been a tough year.
Absolutely.
But the team did an incredible job. I thought we could talk about a couple of individual sequences, Hugo, because it does feel like that kind of film where you can like pull out a particular sequence. One of them is the interrogation, right? When Will Smith is opposite Sonny in that room, and he says the line that I love, "I did not murder him."
I did not murder him.
And we've talked a bit about how Nuke was a big part of that, but just in terms of the subtleties of a scene like that, right? There's much higher action scenes in the film, but here you have a digital character looking directly at Will Smith, and it has to work. And guess what? That scene is beautiful, and it does work. It's really great.
I feel like this is the most important scene of the movie, and it's really the best. Like, I know it's not considered the most advanced VFX on the entire movie because there's a lot more complex shots after. But if anything, I'm pretty sure that this probably was the reason why it was nominated. It was this shot, like this entire sequence, first proved that we were past the can we do digital people on films? I mean, I know we had Gollum already, but this is just like, okay, we can really do it. That's it. We're never going back again. We now can have digital humans all the way.
Yeah.
And this was a really
although
amazing...
it's not a digital human, I know what you mean by that.
Yeah, you know what you mean. A digital character. That's what I meant.
Yeah,
digital character in the movie. Yeah.
But Sonny does have the appearance of a human deliberately, right? That's the point of the robot.
Exactly.
But I always, by the way, felt that the design of him, which I think was led by Patrick Totopoulos, production designer or concept artist, on the film, like it really threaded that needle really well of not going into the uncanny valley of giving a robot a human-looking face, right?
Yeah.
And so that probably made DD's job easier when they had to make it feel like a real Alan being part of the performance. But I interrupted you there, Hugo, but I just wanted to say I agree. It did prove that you could get this emotion from a CG character. Again, and we'd done that before with Gollum. Yes, Wētā had. And ILM had with Jar Jar. But here I feel like DD did a stellar job of, wow, he looks kind of like Alan. He looks kind of like a robot. He's got this performance because the face is malleable on purpose. They just got it just right, I thought.
Yeah, they did. And I think, I know that if you watch the movie, of course, now I've watched the movie on a projector, and I mean, it's a bit soft and it doesn't have a lot of resolution. And I understand all of that because the movie is not really ready for you to be watching it in 4K or on a big projector screen. And I think the film has a lot of emulsion. The film look of it makes it a bit more softer. So obviously, it's not as good looking as the movies today, of course, but it's 20 years old. It's 21 years old. We need to kind of also put that into account. But this sequence is just outstanding. I feel like without this sequence, Well, also, by the way, you were talking about the robot. The robot looks really cool. I love the transparency thing, and I'm sure that must have been one of the inspirations for Ex Machina, because it kind of goes back to that as well.
The
To Ex
cabling
Machina
as well.
Yeah, all the cabling, and it's like Ex Machina is like what they could not. Well, it's 10 years old already, but I guess 10 years later they did Ex Machina, and that's the technology they could do at that time, and then they ended up doing it even better, than One Eye Robot. But the whole sequence really sells it, and because it's a conversation, it's a huge dialogue sequence, and you're looking at the emotion of the robot. The robot is categorically telling you that he didn't kill him. Yes, did not murder him, and he keeps saying that. And then you see also Will Smith really confused by all of this and his distrust on robots. It's a pivotal scene on the movie, and really, I think, is one of those scenes that you forget that you're watching CG. You forget that it's a CG. There's other shots on this movie which you can kind of tell that it's CG, but this sequence, you forget about it. You go into the story, you listen to them talking, and you just get embroiled into the story, and that is, I think, how it proves really that it really worked. And I think they should really be proud of that, because it's one of those scenes where you completely forget that you're looking at a visual effects shot.
Totally.
Yeah.
Just to compare it to some other big robot scenes, I think this kind of sequence where we're just with Sonny in a scene they're the most successful in the film, including, say, where Sonny is fighting, but just Sonny and maybe another robot or a human.
Yeah.
Whenever there's a scene that requires a crowd of robots, I feel like they're the less successful visual effects shots in the film.
Yeah.
And look, part of that is you don't get the intricacy of his facial performance and movement. Part of it is crowds inherently sometimes look like crowd agents. That's a bit of a thing. And so whenever I was watching the film, I felt like I always just wanted to go back to Sonny and Will Smith, right?
I know exactly what you mean. When they were like on the factory floor and they're all in a row, it kind of looks a bit weird. And also when they're on the side these big trucks, and they also they patrol the streets against the other people that are doing the manifestations against them. So I feel like you're right. In this is by design, because they look all the same. All of them look the same. It's the same if you look at now any presentation from Tesla where you see all their robots standing next to each other. It also has the same kind of feeling. They look weird because they're all the same.
No, absolutely. The one scene that does work with multiple robots is when Will goes to the factory or whatever it is and is trying to find Sonny.
Oh yeah, with the gun. Yeah, that's a really cool scene.
And then Sonny kind of does an eye dart or something. I mean, it's a very intriguing sequence, and it works, and it looks great, and it's a DD sequence. But it's more like just where they had to throw lots of robots together, because that's part of it, right? It's about the freedom of robots.
Yeah.
They just take on that bit of a crowd feel, and I think you get that with any kind of crowds, like a army fighting or a bunch of animals too.
Yeah, and I also think it's because when you're watching it just once, especially like you said, the interrogation scene, but also when he is hidden inside the office, of the
that's
creator.
Great.
It's a fantastic scene because he's there. He jumps in slow motion, and then he comes in, gets the gun, and then he's in the middle of the other two actors. And I think those shots are remarkable because you have so much real on the shot, and then he's just one of the elements among the other actors. I think that's why it works so well. Whenever you see the entire army of robots, especially on the end of the movie where you have robots against robots fighting, and you have the shots on the containers, those shots don't look that great. I feel like it's a bit not as good because I also think there's too many robots. There's no reference. There's no humans there, and it's most likely also a limitation of rendering power. I mean, I'm assuming.
Well,
2004 is probably a hard year to do something like that.
Yeah, but it's probably more what you said, Hugo. Whenever Sonny is in a room or in the lab or against Will Smith, the visual effects teams have absolutely something to compare him to and to match to.
Yeah.
When they're out at the bridge and with all the containers, that's a very largely synthetic scene. And it's harder to match to.
Yeah.
Now, I also am not 100% sure how much time the visual effects studios had. It's a huge production. Clearly, DD was the lead vendor, and I'm guessing Wētā came on a little bit later and had to sort of pick up some of these sequences. So we've got to remember that this is a big film that requires, two visual effects studios to work together, when maybe that wasn't happening as much as it happens now.
Yeah.
And Wētā Digital would have had to get up to speed on the robot characters on Sonny, where they needed to put Sonny in. And so, that's kind of one reason sometimes that it doesn't feel the same as the other sequences or have the same look. But
I think, I'm sure, I hope no one gets upset at what I'm about to say, but I feel like I can kind of see the difference between the shots of DD and the shots of Wētā, and no disrespect to anyone involved. I think Wētā's shots are just different types of shots that DD did. They're just much more massive. They have a lot more robots, and it's a bit different sequences. But I also can't really not think about the massive impact that Nuke had on this movie. And I know Wētā didn't use Nuke. And so it's like, I'm not saying that it's a worse compositing that they were using a tool, but there, without a doubt, between 2003, 4, and 2010, there was no substitute to Nuke to do CG compositing. There is no way any other application in the world could be as good as Nuke to do this. And I feel like that was a massive advantage that DD had, and could also contribute to, maybe people are going to prove me wrong, but could have maybe contributed for their shots to look probably more real, because you have so much more control over it with the EXRs and the layers. And that pipeline was not built for Shake. It was not built for other compositing packages, So, yeah.
Yeah. Look, possibly, I think it's a matter of time and the adventurousness of Wētā's sequences that they were tasked with. I mean, looking at another sequence, the tunnel attack, when Will Smith is in his car and gets attacked by those robots. That is a
You're experiencing an accident. It's so funny.
The hell I am, or something.
It's like, you're now experiencing a car accident. It's so cool. He's so funny. He's such a funny guy on the movie.
But that sequence is incredible, actually, because when you think about it, not only is Wētā Digital, which carried out that sequence, having to create a fully digital environment, this tunnel, plus those vehicles, plus the robots, they're matching it to some live action of Will Smith in a, some sort of car setup.
Yeah, it's a gimbal that they've made,
A gimbal, and also dealing with motion capture. And actually, some of the behind the scenes for that Mocap volume work for the car buck is super cool, isn't it, Hugo? I really love some of that stuff that was being directed.
Yeah.
But I just want to say, Wētā Digital did a stellar job on that sequence, I think.
Yeah. That entire sequence not only is really cool, and especially these massive trucks with the spheres on the wheels. Yeah, they're really cool, and they kind of like go sideways and they kind of like travel sideways. It's such a crazy thing. And then the Audi, the Audi car is really cool as well. Which they actually ended up. They were so afraid of making an Audi car, and they were afraid that Audi would be really upset with them or really like giving them a lot of notes. But Audi loved the car, and so much that they loved the car that they ended up kind of using certain elements on future cars as well. that they've released in the meantime. And so it which is really cool. Like the production actually started talking with Audi because of that car. Like it was a product placement, but then ended up becoming much more of a relationship than anything else.
Yeah.
That entire sequence is really cool. And I think the culmination of that sequence is even cooler. I love the one-on-one fight between Will Smith and the robot that is incapacitated, like he only has one arm. And then at the end, they just fight in this kind of, I guess, tunnel next to it. It was like I don't know where they ended up. Like it was probably part of the tunnel or something. And there was just one robot against Will Smith. And then we discover his arm, the mechanical arm. That sequence is really good. And isn't it on that sequence that we first see these really crazy rotation shots? I love these shots. They call them the gerbulator shots. I think that's what they call it on I had to look up what the gerbulation was. I didn't even know what that was.
Actually,
I think that's the first time you see that shot.
I totally forgot to mention at the top of this podcast that I sometimes felt this film could have strayed into horror.
Yeah.
And that's clearly an Alex Proyas thing, being a little bit darker sometimes in his choices. But when those robots get the red mist,
the red light,
and when they sort of some of them, it's like right up close to camera, and they do these kind of hulking moves or spidery type moves, and those twists and turns.
Yeah.
I actually felt like, there's a different movie here, which is a bit like a horror film. I mean, in some ways, you could sort of say it's a little bit of a zombie film, right? Where these robots go rogue, like zombies might. And Will Smith has been in one of those films, as well. So I'm just saying that was something I wanted to mention about the film. I felt like it's an action film. It's an adventure. It's a detective story, but there's a slight bit of horror to it too.
Yeah, those sequences are really, especially when he shoots them, and then one of them is completely destroyed by the wheel. He's like being squashed, and you kind of see this face being squashed a little bit. You're right. Like it is definitely, and then it continues the horror when he has to fight one-on-one with one of them, and he's just gonna be killed. Like that's it. Like he's just there. He has no chance on surviving this thing. And it's really scary because the robot does not stop at anything to try to kill him. Only when he then hears the police sirens, then he just like gets really creepy as well, because he jumps to the fire and destroys himself. So it's really creepy as well. The robot,
a
because the robot super creepy. Yeah. So the scene was horrible, and then it becomes even more creepy when I think Will Smith just says, "What the hell's that?" like it really gets even more weird. The film is filled with really, really cool shots. That sequence is really cool. Yes, I mean, I don't really like much of the ending, but I will never forget when I saw these rotating shots for the first time in my life. When I saw them for the first time. And then I discovered how they made them. It's really cool because they have this kind of rig with the camera attached on a massive circle thing that they could rotate, and then the camera just goes around the platform and makes these awesome shots that I've never seen before, where you kind of see Will Smith rotating and you see his feet and then you see his head, and it's really cool. They're really awesome. I don't even imagine how hard it was to track these, but and to rotoscope these things, because of course the green screen only covers a little bit of it. You just see a little bit of it, and then the rest there's no green screen. So those are by far my favorite shots. It's those gerbulator shots. They called them, I don't know what a gerbulator is, but they kept calling them gerbulator shots.
Well, it works well because they're on the platform.
Yeah,
I mean, so it's a great shot design. I feel I was a bit dizzy watching Digital Domain's breakdown for it earlier, over and over again. But there are some really super cool shots. I love the swarming robots whenever they need to swarm like up the side of a building or, when they are attacking people. They also work well. Another horror side to the film in terms of a sequence, Hugo, is when Will Smith goes to the house.
Yeah, I was going to mention that.
Demolition robot
You read my
kicks
mind,
in,
yeah.
and he saves the cat, obviously. Yeah. That is a fantastic, frenetic, absorbing sequence that only it's ruined, in my opinion, by Will Smith seeming to surf on a piece of debris at the end. I don't even think it was intended to look like he's surfing it into the water feature or pond or pool or whatever it is.
I know, it looks ridiculous.
Yeah, but super cool sequence, right? I loved that one.
Yeah, this is from Rainmaker, actually. It's not from DD or Wētā. This is a separate... it was made by Rainmaker at the time. I don't think they're around anymore, are they? Rainmaker, are they around?
No, Rainmaker are not around. They were in Vancouver. And just to add to that, so definitely Rainmaker did the visual effects for it, including, I think at one point, with a digital demolition robot. But actually, there's some awesome miniatures work in that demolition scene as well. And curiously, I've got a Befores and Afters magazine coming on miniatures soon, and we're going to look back at this sequence.
Ah, cool. Oh, that's awesome.
And I won't go into too much detail, but the miniatures effects supervisor was Dave Asling, and he was working at a company in Toronto that kind of folded as they got the gig to do this, but then he still managed to do the work by hiring, his own team, and just had these really, really clever ways of ripping up the interior of a miniature house, because part of it is Will Smith's character running upstairs and along a hallway as this robot kind of uses its arm to pull in. That they're very interestingly designed shots, I feel, for the
the angles and the camera angles are really cool as well.
Yeah.
And they are really, really, I would say now these days, a bit old school, but it's really amazing how they merged a little bit of CG and they merged the miniatures and they merged a lot of on-set debris.
Live action
a lot of
Will running.
A lot of live action. They have huge sections of this house built with shaking engines and also like debris flying through, both from mechanical methods, but also just like the PAs dropping stuff on Will Smith as well.
Yeah.
It's a really crazy shot, and it's really expertly composited because it's really tough to comp and merge all these elements together and get them seamless. I felt I'm glad that you mentioned this scene because I think it's the only miniature type of shot on the film that we have in this sense, and it really is. It's it's funny to watch the behind the scenes because the miniature supervisor. I'm not sure who that. There's a person not talking on the behind the scenes. He has long hair. Not sure if it's the person you were mentioning, but it's so funny to watch him now 20 years later, and he's talking about the miniatures. He's talking how they combine everything, and he just keeps categorically saying, we will always need miniatures. We will always use miniatures because it's the only way to do it real. And he's like so convinced.
That might be John Burton Jr., who was an ILM suit for a long time and had worked with John Nelson, and he came on the film to oversee some other sequences. And he might have even been at DD at the time. But John Burton's a character. John Burton Jr. is a real character, and he's funny.
It's really annoying that the DVD, for some weird reason, it has no titles. And so you're watching these documentaries, and people show up to talk, and there's no names. And we're like, okay, who is that? Like, do I have to do Google search image? Have to do Google image search to know who that is?
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. They forgot to put the names of people or something. Yeah. I'm not sure what happened there.
Yeah.
This is a really cool scene. Yeah. Go ahead.
Just on that demolition scene, I always thought that was so cool that you would book a robot to demolish your building or house, and it was like scheduled for demolition at a certain time, and I think the demolition came early, right? That was the point.
Yeah, they changed
that they'd been watching Will Smith. But like, I always thought, I really did back then think, gosh, maybe that is what will happen. If you want to get something demolished, you like schedule this crane to come and do it or something. Like, I seriously, that was a memory I have of the film when I first saw it. Was
I never thought about that.
That'll happen. That'll happen.
I never thought about that, but that is an awesome idea, isn't it? It is a really cool idea. Although, why would it just stand there? It could be doing other demolitions. You know, why would it be just standing there?
Well, yeah.
It doesn't really matter.
It's part of the film lore, you know, a safety thing maybe. But I did love that sequence.
This sequence is really a standalone sequence. The whole thing with the cat, and then the jokes that he makes, and then the water and the door surfing. It's different from every other shot on the movie, really, and it's really. But it's also like a really great way of them segueing the story ahead, because now you can really now Will Smith has proof that, you know, there's something going on, and that someone is trying to kill him, and then he goes to meet the doctor, meets the doctor, and then tells her that you know, this was scheduled for this amount of time, and then they say the schedule. It's a really, really huge plot device for the film. But it's a bit funny and funky and kind of weird, and the whole thing is just a bit absurd. The whole thing is like just a bit absurd, and then the cat as well. We don't see the cat anymore on the movie, so I don't know what happened there.
We saved the cat. That's enough. You know,
the cat was so scared. I saw in the behind the scenes, he's so terrified of all the noise around him. Oh man! Speaking of noise, you've watched the behind the scenes. The guns noise is so loud in this movie. It's so loud, and when they have these huge scenes on the end of the movie, and they have all these people on the street fighting the robots, and they fire all the guns at the same time, it's like it's an explosion kind of sound that they are doing at 3:00 in the morning in the middle of the city. You know.
But thank God they're not really doing that, hopefully, anymore with live rounds or, live.
It's so dangerous.
Live fake rounds.
It's so dangerous.
We've moved on from that, you know.
It's so funny that Alex Proyas is like talking about this thing. You know, there's a guy that shows up on the middle of the set, and he's like, this guy that lived there, and he woke up from this noise. You know, it was 3:00 in the morning, and he just walked directly to Alex Proyas to tell him, really upset and really annoyed, like, what is going on here? Who's in charge? Who the fuck is doing this noise? And Alex just turns in him and says, I don't know, man. I just got here. I don't know what's going on. I have no idea. And he was like, he just lied to the guy that he wasn't even directing this movie. I thought that was fascinating that he actually says this on the DVD. such a bad omission to say that he just cowered out and didn't say anything.
I know. I might share a link with you, Hugo, and you can share it on the podcast, that where I did talk to Alex Proyas about his interactions with visual effects over the years.
Yeah.
You know, we did it during the COVID lockdown. And what I had remembered was that he didn't have a very pleasant experience on this film. Yeah. You know, I think it might have been his big studio film. You know, he'd done Dark City, of course, but it wasn't necessarily a big studio film.
Yeah.
And he'd done The Crow, and obviously that was an insane experience for the death of Brandon Lee. But you know, iRobot was really like dealing with Fox every day, and it wasn't that great. The result was good, of course, it did well, but I really enjoyed getting a perspective from Alex on him. What was it like to deal with visual effects in a big way? And he'd done visual effects with The Crow and Dark City, and you know, continued doing it with Knowing and Gods of Egypt. But I imagine, look, it comes up sometimes with directors, which is they have these big visions and they're tasked with doing these big films that need visual effects. But at some point, visual effects, you know, it's a hard slog to get the film made. You all go through all that stuff on set, and then you go through it all again in post. And Alex kind of talks about that in an interview that we did, so that was cool to talk to him. I think he navigated it really well, but it sounds like it was quite a hard process. Maybe, you know, part of it was just actually meeting a release date that would have been Now, when was it released? Something like, was it a summer film? Absolutely. Basically
Yeah, it was
released
July.
this
Yeah,
time.
it was
this
July
time of the
2000.
year.
Yeah. It's exactly 21 years ago. Yeah, and it's 20th Century Fox. I'm sure it wasn't that easy, and you kind of feel that on the documentaries. You kind of feel that on the interviews. Sometimes he complains about the financials of the movie, and sometimes he complains about the fact that they switch locations all the time, and he was supposed to shoot it somewhere else, and then the last minute they decided to shoot it in Canada, and so the whole thing. A lot of the locations were really troubling, especially the shipyard at the end with the containers. He didn't want that location. He was a bit upset that they gave him that location. And so there was a bit of tension in the documentary. You can kind of see it and hear it on the interviews. That there was some, even the beginning, the genesis of this movie. I mean, when they didn't want to greenlit the movie, it took a while, a long time to get it greenlit. I mean, as I understood, it took almost 2 years to get it greenlit from the moment that he was writing and getting concepts and getting the robots in. A turning point was when he made this kind of fake trailer for the movie with some animatics. And then that's when 20th Century Fox kind of thought, okay, let's do this and let's make this movie. But I'm sure 20th Century Fox also has, I mean, the film did well, but, you know, I guess if you look back in the standards of today, it didn't do that well. I mean, the film cost 120, made 350. I know that's twice as much, but that is really not much. And it's not a huge movie, but I know it's different times. We didn't have these billion-dollar box offices at this time yet, apart from Star Wars, I guess. Star Wars would be the one that can do that, but it wasn't very common, to do that.
Yeah. I think back then the reporting of international box office wasn't as
good as it is now,
managed as it is now. So who knows? But,
probably was more.
Look, I think it's a success, and as we say, the home entertainment release was part of that success as well.
Yeah.
But it was really about being a Will Smith vehicle when Will Smith was just at his height. I won't say that Will Smith is not at his height anymore. I'm sure that he is still someone that we would want to go and watch in a movie if it's the right kind of movie.
Yeah.
But I think everyone flocked to a Will Smith movie to see the wisecracking Will Smith, and that's what I remember out of this film. Apart from the great visual effects,
it's his performance.
It's his performance. Yeah.
Yeah, and also like the interaction with the other actors, it was really cool. Like I really liked the way they interact, the interaction with Bridget and the interaction with Bruce as well. It is really cool. Like the whole thing against the CEO and like the sexual tension as well. They really did a great job. I think the actors did really a great job. And of course, Alan did a fantastic job with the robot as well. But it's funny that you're talking about that conversation from Alex and his relationship with CG and 3D and everything. I feel like Alex seems to me, I've never met him, I never talked with him, but by reading and watching documentaries and watching behind the scenes of all these movies, feels to me like he's someone that knows exactly what he wants, and he's a very concept-driven director. He has a very big vision on these movies. These movies are huge visions, especially Dark City and especially The Crow.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's tough, because this movie is not something. iRobot probably didn't have as much control as he had on The Crow or Dark City. And I'm sure he probably lost a bit of the control on the movie as much as he had on the other ones, because it's such a big movie.
Well, it's
Will
expensive.
Smith,
yeah.
And it's a Will Smith vehicle, like you said. I'm sure Will Smith had a lot to say as well. And he did whatever he wanted, really, at this time, probably.
I mean, Will Smith is the big part of our discussion today, but I just had a quick look at the films that came out after iRobot, and one of them was Hitch, right? Which I'm not sure I really like that film that much, to be frank. Sorry, everybody. But it was huge. It made more money than iRobot, right? And then after that, and it's a smaller film, Hitch, didn't cost as much to make. The Pursuit of Happiness, also a huge film without a massive, massive budget. And then I Am Legend was an enormous hit, more than $500 million. So actually, Will Smith was rising then. What about Hancock? Okay, that was an even bigger film. So we weren't even at the height of Will
No.
Smith with iRobot, and people really were.
I think it's like a
going to
couple
see
of
him.
years later when you start getting into, you know, Men in Black 3, and then I think it's maybe 10 years later when you kind of start having, I wouldn't say it's like a downfall, but just not as big
It's
as
a downfall.
it was.
It's After Earth with his son.
Oh yeah,
And
man,
then-
that movie. Jeez, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. That movie is not very good
No.
from anyone like that. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, I don't think I'm looking at the list now. I don't think I like any of the movies he's done in the meantime. I mean, a lot. Well, I'm lying. I really like Gemini Man. I think that's a great movie. I really like Gemini Man.
Right.
But it's
Okay.
not really like a Will Smith vehicle, I guess. That film is much more an action-packed kind of angly. I don't know. It's a different type of movie. I don't think it's the same
Sure.
as, you know.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't do really jokes or he doesn't do crack. It's not the same as the other Will Smith movies. I think Gemini Man.
No.
Yeah.
He's fantastic in Emancipation. That's
Oh,
a
I
good
haven't
film.
seen that
Yep.
yet. And I've never seen any of the Bad Boys ever. Any of the 3 films. I'm sorry. I've never. Are they good? Should I watch them? He's like at their face, like.
What's that other big film you've never seen? Is it Titanic or something? No.
No. It's we keep talking about it on the show. It's with Leonardo DiCaprio. What's the name?
Revenant.
Yeah, I never seen it.
Okay.
Never seen it. I know.
Let's
There's
have a movie day on different countries with Revenant and the Bad Boys series. Bad Boys is like my Fast and Furious.
Oh, you like it?
I think.
Okay.
Oh, they're great.
Yeah, I should watch them then.
I'm
There's 3
here
of
to
them,
say-
right? There's 3 of them, I think.
Oh, there might even be 4.
You think it's
I'm
4?
not sure.
Okay. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. It's Bad Boys, Ride and Drive. Yeah, you're right. So yeah, fuck, it's last year. So they did one last year. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's good.
Okay. I'll go and check this out. I mean, I love Martin Lawrence. I'm sure I'm gonna like this. I'm sure it's just why like jokes all the time and everything. Yeah, I need to go and see it. I promise I'll watch them. I'll promise I'll watch them. I'll do that.
Okay, well, we shouldn't make this the Will Smith podcast, but we have talked about him quite a lot. Hugo, I think we both loved iRobot, and we both feel like it's a really important visual effects film. Just huge work there by Digital Domain and Wētā Digital, now Wētā FX. Just they really did stellar job in making this a big film.
Yeah.
And that's what we wanted to give a shout out to. But yeah, really fun to talk to you about the film, Hugo. And hopefully whenever you hear someone say something in the intonation of, I did not murder him, you now repeat the line. Please go and do that.
You know that I'm going to put this clip now on the podcast as soon as you say. I'll just interrupt you and put it for real.
That would be great. All right. Thanks, Hugo. Thanks, everyone, for listening. We've really enjoyed talking about this film.
Thank you,
See
guys,
ya.
everyone. See you later. Bye.
Bye.